So perhaps if you're a new player and you want to play competitive, or at the very least you want to take an army that can do everything and you don't really have to worry about collecting outside of that, one of these 3 sub-factions is the one to go for. I've been praying for someone to actually play a melter against my crisis suit, because I've got drones. Boom. You are useless. Okay. Ooh, feel like I'm talking to myself in the mirror there. Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here in natural lighting. So here, really painful. Here, can't see my face at all. Yeah, my bad. Today I'm talking about, as you can tell from the thumbnail and the title, top 3 competitive kill teams. I'm not going to be breaking this down specifically into 100, 125 or 200 commanders. I want to give a generic, these are the best factions in every possible situation. Personally, I like the idea that you can take a single faction, go anywhere and win. So if there's a faction that absolutely dominates the scene at 100, but can't win commanders or can't win 125, well, I'm not going to talk about that. That's not a top 3 competitive faction for me. Luckily, I do think there are 3, 4, maybe 5 factions that dominate in multiple formats, including arena, outside of arena. There's a lot going on. So let's quickly dive into it. But of course, before we do that, if you're a subscriber, I'd like to give you a big double hello. What is a double hello? Nobody really knows, but let's get into this. Oh, also, I have a Facebook page now. Check that out in the link and the description. What does my Facebook page do? Well, sometimes I'm going to be releasing videos there early. I'm also going to be trying to engage with you, my lovely, beautiful viewers, where I'm just talking about kill team tactics. On occasion, you'll get videos early. You're also going to get a few behind the scenes things. For example, up there, I've posted up my sister's kill team, Sisters of Battle, which I haven't posted to my YouTube channel, etc. etc. I go to talk on there sometimes because it seems an easier way to store information than my Discord. But I also have a Discord. Did you know I also have a Patreon? Okay, thanks. Let's talk about competitive kill teams. Now, as you can see from what's in front of me, I already have one of them picked out. But because they're here, let's talk about them last? No, because you know I'm going to talk about them. Let's talk about Tau first. Tau have been a champion since day 1 of Kill Team. They have managed to dominate 100 and commanders very convincingly. Interestingly, until very recently, they haven't even touched 125, which would have been the main reason that they were left off of this list. But finally, people online have come around to the idea that they can really get some work done in 125. I also think they're a great beginner team. Now, I'm not really going to be talking about beginners too much here, so actually I take that back. I'm going to do a separate video for why beginners should play Tau. Let's keep it competitive and high level. The really cool thing about Tau is the shield drones and the gun drones, but mainly the shield drones. They are this is almost a negative, like to the game as a whole, but as a faction that you want to win with, this is actually really cool. You can quite conceivably win the game without ever killing an enemy model. And you could just completely dominate them with fast units that have fly and are hard to kill. They've got T4, they've got invuln saves. They're a force to be reckoned with before they even fire a shot. But then they do have shots to fire. They have some really good guns. You should expect to lose minimum 1 model a turn to a standard rail rifle shield drone spam team. That's the case in 100. When you go up to 125, which I'll talk about soon, actually. Let's talk commanders first. Commanders, the Tau have this, who is not fully painted, I apologise, but they have this bad boy right here, and a Force of Battle suit. Like, I don't want to make crazy statements, but he is like the best commander in the game. He's almost impossible to kill, he's undercosted, absolutely amazing model that can't be taken down because ablative wounds thanks to the drones, tough in and of his own right, moves really fast, has amazing guns, firepower, etc. Yeah, absolutely dominates commanders. So that's kind of uncontested. I've spoken with my Commanders International guys. They all agree. I mean, this is the only model in the Commanders International tournament pack that received any adjustments, basically. They had to nerf him and nothing else. The rest of the game, no problem. Or every other model, no problem. This guy, he needs some work. So pretty uncontestably, best commander in the game, and backed up by a really solid team that again allows you to avoid having to actually interface with the game and your opponent and just sit on objectives. And then thanks to this guy, also get kills. Tau, super strong at commanders. Now let's talk 125. 125, for quite a while, Tau were dead. You know, who knows why this is. People see Tau dominating at 100 and they don't want to go to 125 with them. They want to find something new. They think they're still going to be strong there. We saw a very similar thing with Azayani. Azayani completely dominated at 100, and then after they won like 1 or 2 tournaments at 125, people just stopped playing them. I assume because it was kind of a proven thing. People know that you can win with them, and also other people are going to be saying, okay, I have to take a list that can deal with Azayani. This is that list, and therefore it becomes much harder for the Azayani to win because everybody knows how they play, has practiced against them, and specifically has a counter Azayani list. For similar reasons, the Tau went away. Tau have returned, apparently, sadly for many people, and what they're mainly doing is at 125, finally people have come around to the idea that you can fit in the Enforcer's little brother, the Crisis Suit. Yeah, he's a beast. He's always been a beast. At 100 points, he's not a beast. At 125 points, that extra 25 points is so critical to making that model work. But he can do everything. He's hard to kill. He can have drones. He can completely lock down, if you're in arena, an entire corridor. Like, he can move fast enough to get up there to block an entire corridor for the entire game, essentially. He could be unkillable, you know, absolutely terrifying model, but he's still killy. And I think he's rocking in at about 43 points. So he's a Terminator. The Terminator that doesn't have a 2-up save. That's it. But instead of that, he has drones. So he's literally invincible. You want to shoot me with Plasma and Melter? Please do. I've been waiting. I've been praying for someone to actually play a Melter against my Crisis Suit. Because I've got drones. Boom. You are useless. Okay. Ooh. I feel like I'm talking to myself in the mirror there. I don't think at this point many people are going to contest me saying that Tau are one of the top teams, because they've just come back into people's consciousnesses after winning several games on TTS and in different tournaments, both inside and outside arena. So that's it. Tau. Cool. Hey, if you want to know more about Tau, I've probably put a thing on screen right now saying where you can go to see a Tau faction focus that I sat down and did with Birinid, who I believe was one of the people that just won with the Tau, with this list that we're talking about in the faction focus, beginner to advanced. Go check that out. No better way to learn. Now these Tau are going to stay here because I can't be bothered to set up a new kind of little thing here, and I don't think I have these models with me. But the second of the top 3 competitive kill teams is going to have to go to one of my favourites that I bring up in every single video I do, it seems, Drukhari. Now the reason I like Drukhari is because they have a crazy amount of different build options. Because of the way their Cabals, Covens and the other thing, Cults, work, and within each of these 3 sub-factions, essentially each one has multiple builds, even if it's only swapping 1 or 2 lists out. You come up with this really interesting way of building a list where you have a sub-faction and then you have an alternative within the sub-faction. Then you get racks that have multiple different ways because you also have the grotesques on top. Then you have the mercenaries. They're a really interesting team to build with, and I actually quite like it because it's still very cut and dry. Like, it naturally leads you towards building a list that is hyper specific. And so you know mentally when you're going into a fight, I only take this build when I'm facing this thing. So I think it's actually quite good from that perspective. They're just so strong. Oh my gosh. Obviously, rack spam, in my opinion, is still one of the best things you can do in the game. T4, 4-up invuln, but you still have killing units in the form of your incubi and your mandrakes. Yeah, great. You have such a durable team with this mixture of racks and mandrakes. what's the enemy doesn't know what to take against you. Like, there is no good option from the enemy's perspective to take against you. If they're taking their plasma guns, you put your mandrakes forward so they miss, and of course your invulns. Like, if they take flamers, okay, flamers are probably a good answer, I suppose, but you know, you just outcharge them, fine, whatever. Anyway, because they're so fast, they're good in the arena, and they're durable, of course. They can sit on points, they can kill stuff because they're wounding on 4s, always. I'm going to admit, I don't know too much about how they're performing in Commanders. I don't think the Homunculus stands out hugely. The main good point of the Homunculus is that it's cheap. So you could take a Homunculus and an Abomination, and basically just run your standard 1-2-5 point list, which is still really strong, but just throw in either an Abomination or just absolutely spam Mandrakes. Mandrakes are so good. Oh my gosh. When you just think about what they can do. Deep strike 3 of them in for a CP, always -1 to hit, including in close combat. Shooting their mortal wounds on a 6. Such a good model. Such a good model. Actually, the model itself is terrible, but I mean, the data sheet is good. Anyway, I don't think anyone's going to push against Drukhari either. They've been really solid at 100. They've been solid at 1-2-5. Nobody would contest that Drukhari are one of the top 3 competitive kill teams. Personally, I'd say you can get away with only ever running a rack type list, but if you do really want to splash out, Cabalites definitely have a place as well. And of course, if you go to Commanders, a Shadow Field is just so fun as a concept, so you're never going to have an issue with that. And you get to take a Dark Lance and a Shredder. So good. So good, like really good. The only downside they have, of course, are witches, which people want to make work in arena. I don't know if people have. It is what it is. I can't really speak to that too much. I personally, even in arena, wouldn't run witches. So Drukhari, another solid team, which brings us to the 3rd top competitive kill team. And there are so many I could pick, because once you've taken spot 1 and 2, which I think are pretty uncontestable, you kind of get into a tier where there are lots that are really good, and it really depends on the meta surrounding you specifically at the moment. And to pick one out of the 4 or 5, it almost seems a little bit unfair to the others, and almost like I need to do a top 6 competitive kill teams. But then that's going on a bit, isn't it? Especially with how much I ramble. Okay, I've picked this one over others just because I think it has multiple different ways it can be built and still work effectively, as opposed to some of the others were a bit of a one-trick pony. Now, yes, it was a one-trick pony that always worked in every situation, but there wasn't really much of a way to build outside that. Some of you might be thinking I'm going to go with, you know, the Kings, and I mentioned them earlier, Azayani, who are always strong, have always been strong. And I do think they're right up there. I think the Azayani and the ones I'm about to mention are on the same level. You could also see me going for something with Psychic. That wouldn't be Grey Knights for obvious reasons, because they just die too easily. They're too elite. So it would be Thousand Suns, which I personally have an interest in at the moment. To be fair, Thousand Suns haven't actually placed that well recently. I mean, they've done stuff, and it could just be people aren't playing them for whatever reason. And if people started playing them, they'd be top tier. Can you think what else it could be? It's not Azayani. It's not Necrons. I'll give you that hint away. It's not Necrons. I know a lot of people... Necrons are, of course, very strong. If we hadn't just had the Pariah Nexus update, I might consider putting them above. But Necrons were 100% a one-trick pony. They just took flayed ones. That was Necrons. So I don't want to say Necrons, especially since flayed ones got nerfed. Now, that might still be what Necrons do, but I'm not going to say them. It is... I think most of you have guessed it by now. It's Astra Militarum. So it's the Imperial Guard. Now, recently, they've got this nickname, the Blackstone Guard, because the Blackstone Fortress models that you could put into the Imperial Guard are really strong. And they are, in fact, in every single list. They're just so good. However, you don't need them to be a top tier team. Having them in, like, really just elevates the entire team to the next level, but you don't need them to be a really strong, difficult to handle competitive team. You could just put one in, perhaps, if that's something you want to do. You probably should put all 4 in. They're really good at whatever power level you're playing at 100, 125, 200. If you can put Ryan and Rouse, Godfrey de Montbard, and Pius Vaughan into your list, you definitely should. Maybe not 100. Maybe at 100 you want to leave one of those 4 out, but at everything else, you take all 4 of those. At 100, there's really not much to talk about. These guys they have many different ways to build. You can obviously go plasma spam. You can, if you want, even go flamer spam. Flamer spam is really good at countering certain things, and when you manage to put 8 down on the board, that's really cool. I haven't seen anybody really experiment with melter spam, which they haven't needed to until recently. Perhaps there's room for that on a list when you're going up against Marines now. I can definitely see a purpose in that. They're just so strong. If you want, you can build them as kind of a more elite team, just going Scions. That's a bit fluffy though. It's not a bad way to build them, but it's not top tier. You wouldn't take all Scions and expect, to win, because when you're playing Astra Militarum, you could build that same faction better. Really, the inclusion of the Blackstone Fortress models simply allows them to do things they couldn't do before. Suddenly, you have a really strong flamer and something that can attack in close combat. Then you have something that can tank with their 3-up invuln save and is affected by sub-factions, so you can make them strength 4, which is a totally valid tactic. If you want to take everybody else as flamers, for example, so they can advance anyway, you take them as Catalan purely so that Godfrey de Montbard goes to strength 4. They do have a downside in that they're all T3, and so certain factions can deal with them pretty well. Honestly, up against someone that really knows how to use orders and manages to place their models into the correct trades and the right matchups, they're such a difficult team to deal with. They can kind of do it all. I don't think I've ever seen an Ogryn really go into a competitive list, because you don't need it now when you've got Godfrey de Montbard, because of course an Ogryn should be there to deal with things in melee, to be tough to shift, but you could just put Godfred in there instead. So at 100 and 125, they just do things quite well. For those of you that don't know about commanders, they do equally well there. They have a cheap commander option, which allows them to take either just more spam or to throw in bigger models. You can use orders twice, so you are so fast. You manage to take these models and make them fast. And as we know from, for example, things like Azayani, being fast is really strong, allows you to get to points before the enemy, allows you to do things out of order that your opponent isn't expecting you to do. Imperial Guard, really strong. And if I had to give a fourth, let's say a surprise pick that nobody's going to agree with me on. This is okay. So I could just pick from the rest of like the top tier factions, like Azayani, Necrons, Marines, etc. But instead I want to go with something a little bit off kilter that people aren't really clued up on. And I think I'm going to have to go with Death Guard. So the reason Death Guard are good is pretty obvious, I think. They're difficult to shift. They're durable. They do exactly what they say on the tin. They Death Guard. So that's, yeah. They also have very good weapons, so they can still get kills. And best of all, they have the ability to spam a board. So they have durable units that can spam. I don't know what else I need to say, really. When we moved to 125 hold kill, a lot of people were saying the Death Guard were dead. Suddenly, losing your Poxwalkers lost you points. And that is an issue, obviously. It does nerf them somewhat to how they were in just hold 3, in which they were a really strong team. And at the time, I had kind of still held the belief that no, they're really good still, and they're really strong. And I was very much a proponent of still running them, and I was going to do that, but then Janice actually took them to a real tournament at 125 hold kill and managed to take first with them. And I was like, So she kind of proved my point for me, and then I felt like, well, somebody else did it, so I don't need to do it. Okay, whatever. And that is the end of the video. So, top 3 competitive factions. What do you think? Tell me, which faction do you think does everything better than the 3 factions I just said? I know there are some factions that are just straight up better in, for example, just Arena, or just Commanders, or just 125 Open. But I think these 3 are the go-tos. So perhaps if you're a new player and you want to play competitive, or at the very least you want to take an army that can do everything and you don't really have to worry about collecting outside of that, one of these 3 sub-factions is the one to go for. Now, over the next few days, you're going to see a lot more lists, just because I wanted something that kind of reinvigorated me. And for me, that's generally kind of the more casual narrative stuff. So we're going to be doing like a top factions for beginners, top 3 most complicated factions, so like the hardest factions to play, all this sort of thing. I hope that you enjoy them. They are obviously just kind of casual and a little bit fluffy. And yes, I'm giving the occasional tip, like to guide you how to play things. I do want to get back to some more actual competitive talk coming up soon and give you kind of real in-depth things that aren't just focused on beginners. So prepare for that. But kind of to ramp myself into that, as you see, I have new thumbnails now. I have a Facebook page that you should check out. No, I don't really know why, but maybe I'll figure it out at some point. I thought I'd keep it pretty simple with some lists. Everybody loves lists. I'll probably do a tier list as well at some point, because who doesn't love a tier list, right? And as I'm sure you guys know, Cool Model said, oh, hey, I can do what I did last time. I can show you the actual models, right? No. There you go. Look at these flying stands. I'm honestly just in love with these flying stands. Absolutely love them. Awesome. Okay. As you can tell, the not all 100% finished there, but I thought, nice. Anyway, if you're a subscriber, the tower going to give you a triple hello. Thank you very much for watching to the end of the video, guys. I'm trying to do a few new things, but at the moment we're just ramping back into some just casual chats about Kill Team. You know, outside the flurry of Pariah Nexus, and just, yeah, I'm hyped for Kill Team, but I've got to get into it slowly so that I don't just dive into the deep end and say something crazy like, oh, crew to the best faction, crew to the most competitive faction, and here's why. Because, you know, that's where my brain goes. Not crude, actually, no. That's like Gene Stealer Cults. I might legitimately come up with the hot take that, actually, Gene Stealer Cults are the best faction, and here's why. So, you know, I've got to control myself just a smidge, okay? Anyway, this will be Glass Half Dead. I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. I hope you enjoy what's coming up in the following weeks. Bye.